And quite honestly, I think one of the biggest things we can talk about right now is how China has tried to change everyone's mind about how they're dealing with the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
All right. So what have we got over here?
Can I preface this by saying this is not going to be about COVID? Do not
No,
turn off. I know
worry.
people are tired of it. This is about the absolute insanity that's going on right now.
Yeah.
In China, and some of it's related to COVID.
Sure.
So basically, a bunch of places went into lockdown.
Yes.
Right? And lockdown in China means the zero COVID policy. You can't leave. They'll tell you when you can go get a ticket for one family member to go out and buy stuff. They try to keep it all under control, but it devolves into chaos pretty much every single time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll get notices for this kind of stuff way too late.
Yeah,
and
like
they
a
can't
day,
do anything.
Like a couple of hours before.
Right. So in this situation, you have people that are not allowed to enter certain buildings because, by the way, the earthquake happened in Sichuan.
Yeah.
Right.
It's tragic. By the way, tragic earthquake happened in Sichuan. 6.8 on the Richter scale.
Yes.
And one of the awful things that happened, I'll just explain this to you to show you how ridiculous the zero COVID policy is there were people under lockdown.
Yes.
In Sichuan, and
Yes.
their buildings were locked down. And when they lock down the buildings, they lock the gates.
Yes.
They lock the fire escapes, because if they didn't do that, people would leave.
Yeah.
Okay? So now you have an earthquake, and people are locked in their buildings and cannot escape. They cannot get out. There's footage of people trying to get out of the fire escapes, but they're locked.
Correct.
And now, anyone who's safety conscious, anyone who knows anything about safety in general knows that you don't lock fire escapes.
No.
They're there for a reason.
Right.
But the stupid zero COVID policy has now put people's lives in danger, and has, of course, resulted in the deaths of who knows how many people. Because, hey, if there's a fire, we saw what happened. There were fires, and the firemen couldn't even get into the places because they were locked down, and the people couldn't get out. Now you have an earthquake, people locked in their buildings. You know what's going to happen.
For sure. Can
It's
you put
awful.
put the notice back up?
Okay, let's
Or
put the
didn't
notice.
even tell them what it's about.
Yeah.
So this notice basically says that if you are coming in as a rescue, like an emergency worker, to this area where the earthquake was, you have to have a negative COVID test for 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Before you get in there. So people are dying.
Yeah.
People are trapped. They need firefighters like crazy.
Yeah, and they need volunteers.
Rescue workers,
they need
EMTs.
Yeah.
And they are not letting them in because of zero COVID policy.
So here you are, you're a rescue worker. You're arriving on the scene because of this terrible, awful earthquake. And instead of being able to go and help people, you have to line up and take a freaking COVID test. Isn't that ridiculous?
You know what the worst part about this was?
What?
And I think this is what you guys come here for, not necessarily to see this footage, to understand it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That clip there was not being shared to say, look at how crazy this is.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how wild this is. It was shown
Like
as
in a
positive
patriotic
thing.
way.
Like, oh, look at all the rescue workers coming here lining
Yeah.
up for their COVID test, but while the people die and suffer inside, by the way.
Yeah.
It was with like some hopeful music and stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't shared to say, holy shit, look at what they've done to us.
Yeah, it shows you the level of absurdity, right?
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, the Chinese government kind of tricked the world into thinking that this is the way to do things.
Yes.
A lot of people were pointing to China, rightly so, because they've been fed a bunch of bullshit. Like China is going, look, 1 million deaths in America. We only had like 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Meanwhile, countless people died of COVID in the beginning stages of COVID in China. We'll never know.
No.
Those crematoriums running 24 hours a day. Tons of people died. But they were just like, nope, that's not COVID. They just died of natural causes or whatever. And then they're like, whoa, look, America's so bad, 1 million. Look, we've got 3. And everyone's like, wow, China must be doing something right.
Right.
The people who believe their 1.66 million followers on Guangdong Today or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's the kind of person who's like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And it was used as kind of a model for a lot of places.
Yeah.
Okay, and we saw the UK and Australia and various places like that starting to kind of go down the route of what China did.
Yeah.
And China loved that.
Yeah.
Then,
Like,
especially
we
the
set
Chinese
the
government's
example.
like, look, everyone's following us. We're number one. We're the leader.
Yeah.
And so when it came to the point where everyone's like, you know what, this is not working out, Xi Jinping especially is like, nope, we're going to stick to this because it
Double
worked.
down.
It worked for us up until now. It's going to keep working. So we're just going to really double down. And it leads to absurdity like this.
Yeah.
In an emergency situation where you need people to go and pull, victims out of the rubble and whatever, they're like, nope, not until you've had your COVID test.
No.
Not until you've lined up and taking your PCR test and we have to wait 24 hours or whatever and get it back, and then we'll send you into the field. Because, who knows? You might give COVID to that person who's trapped under the rubble when you're rescuing them. I mean, what is the logic?
My arm's pinched off and my artery is preventing blood flow. Like, I'm actually going to die.
Yeah.
But please don't give me COVID.
Isn't it dumb?
Yeah.
I mean, I could say a lot of swear words. I don't like to swear a lot. It slips out occasionally. We all do.
We do. When me and you are together, we
slip. Had a couple drinks. You'll hear some nastiness.
We didn't have a couple drinks, by the way. You make it sound like we just had a couple drinks.
But so I'm keeping it as civil as I can. But this kind of thing infuriates me because I know the people that are suffering, the actual people of China are suffering this absolute nonsense. And it's almost more maddening that they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they try to do anything about it, they just get punished.
Yeah.
You got such a stupid leadership, an inept, ridiculous leadership that ends in this. People being locked in their buildings during an earthquake, and then rescue workers having to line up to take a bloody COVID test to go and rescue them. It's dumb.
Yeah.
And you can replace dumb with a much stupider, worse word,
Regarded.
Yes.
It's regarded as dumb.
It's regarded as...
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? Guess what?
The panic has started in Chengdu.
The bad planning.
A big one was in Zhejiang province. What is that city called?
Which one?
Not Yushi. What is the... Wuxi.
Yeah, Wuxi. Yeah, Wuxi. Yeah. Guys, seriously. This is what happens. The government suddenly sends out a text message to your phone through, the system or through WeChat or something. And it says, guess what, guys? You're locked down from tomorrow or from midnight.
Yeah. Last minute.
What's going to happen? Well, everybody's going to go and they're going to go strip the shelves bare. Okay? It's very bad planning. You got people standing on the shelves here at the markets doing...
To be fair, they know what happens if they don't get anything.
Yeah, I mean...
The government stipend vegetables and food that they hand out, a huge chunk of people got nothing.
Yeah.
People starved to death.
No, they did, and you'll find out that right now there is a big problem with that.
Yeah, we're starving.
Yeah. But, here's the thing. You get this, grab hag thing going on here, which you sometimes get anyway in normal circumstances.
Oh, for sure.
But, we're talking about... this very poorly planned situation where it's last minute they say, we're going to go into lockdown.
Yeah.
If they knew what they were doing, they would do it properly. It'd be orderly. They'd let little segments go and but nope, it's just go deal with yourself.
Hear me out. You could just not do this.
Yeah, you could not do this stupid zero
everyone
COVID.
else has moved on.
And of course, they've got the drones. There's no audio here. There's supposed to be.
I put audio in there.
Not on this one, you didn't.
I did though, specifically, and I listened to it ahead of time.
No, the other audio worked.
Weird. I put audio on this.
Anyway, there is supposed to be audio of the drone basically saying you're shouting at people, stay in your homes and all that kind of stuff, right?
Classic.
Yeah, people trying to break out because they're now locked in. Look.
We had more welding, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fair. If you think about it for a second now, okay? Wherever you live right now, look, there's bicycle locks on the doors now locking people in. Just imagine for a second you're told, hey, you're not allowed to leave your house. Okay?
Just like tomorrow.
By the way, what you're seeing here behind us is what I was talking about earlier. This is people that have just suffered the earthquake trying to leave their building. They're trying to evacuate. The earthquake's just struck.
Big one, 6.8.
Yeah, they've all rushed down. This is footage from that. They've all rushed downstairs. They're trying to get out, and it's locked, and they cannot escape. Right?
Yeah.
They're there with their families. They're all trying to get out. You cannot escape because of the stupid government policy. And again, people are suffering for what? For no reason. Because it's all half-assed and chabador anyway.
Yeah.
Take a look at what this woman's doing. I'll take us out of there. See, there's audio.
Yeah, I put audio.
What's she doing?
She's doing fake COVID tests.
Yep.
Because they have to hit quotas. So she's opening the COVID tests, swiping on something, and then putting it in the solution to say it's done.
Yeah.
That is one of the most apt analogies for quite literally how everything works in China. And I don't know how many times we have to tell people that it's not just about COVID. It's not just about Facebook likes. It's not just about GDP numbers. It's everything that relies on quotas, which is everything in the Chinese government.
Yeah.
It's always fake. And I'm not over exaggerating.
No, it is. It's and corruption is endemic. It's all part of the way the Chinese government works. And there's a certain amount of tolerance for it, and everyone in China understands that's how it works. But the problem is that the outside world, people like you and us, the way we're brought up, the societies we're brought up in, we don't expect that from a government, especially not like at a diplomatic level or something.
Yeah.
We do not expect to be lied to constantly. We do not expect all these fabricated numbers and bald-faced lies all the time.
Yes.
And so a lot of people fall for it because you don't expect it, right? Imagine you grow up in Europe and you're just like, oh, you're some Northern European dude grew up there and stuff, and you're used to the rules and you pay your tax and you do all your stuff the way you're supposed to do. And then you meet a Chinese diplomat and they tell you, oh, look, the sun's always shining in China. There's no pollution. You expect that to be true.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Well, you take people at face value.
Yeah.
Right.
And people have to start to learn that you cannot take the Chinese government at face value. In fact, what they say is always going to be false.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be some things that aren't false, sure, but only if it works in their favor.
If it relies on numbers and quotas, it's always fake. I'm not saying it's 100% fake. There's always fake elements to it.
Yeah, correct. Anyway, here we can see how people are being, delivered their little food parcels of...
the people that get them.
Yeah, they get them, like vegetables and stuff. Have to lower down ropes and things and work on a weird system of, pulleys and all that kind of nonsense. I mean... Again, it just shows the level of absurdity that's going on here. The lack of planning, the inability of the government to actually manage this properly, Yeah. And here we have people actually creating ropes. They're using, you can see one over there, like they're using network cables, Cat5 cabling and stuff. Just all these different ways and means to get food from the outside world.
Yeah.
And more of this. We saw this in Shanghai.
Yeah.
We're seeing this now all over. Chengdu's in lockdown right now.
Yeah.
And that's a huge amount of people. How many people there?
Probably 8 million, let me see.
I feel like it's more than that.
16 million.
Yeah, there we go. Double. Yeah. 16 million people.
Grown.
Yeah, it's grown by double.
Yeah.
Huge amount of people in lockdown right now. So we're seeing repeats of what we saw in Shanghai. People screaming from their windows, usual kind of thing. And again, we get numb to this because we see it's happening all the time. Okay?
Yeah.
And you're like, another lockdown in China. Oh, it's just another lockdown. But you know what? It's a bloody human tragedy that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's a modern day tragedy.
And you become numb to it, but you shouldn't. This should not be happening.